Hey, travelers. Well, welcome to the Speed Traveler Formula One Deep Dive bonus edition, Charlie. We're going to be, not only are we going to be touching on the Monaco F1 race, but we're also going to be touching on the Indy 500 happening this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Pretty exciting. I mean, this is our favorite weekend of the year. There's also the Coca-Cola 600. We're not going to get too far down the NASCAR thing. But, wow, I couldn't wait to get up at 5 this morning, actually 4:30, to watch Monaco practice one.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting to see what was going on at the track. I mean, we have a lot to talk about coming from Imola, the for IndyCar race, the Formula One race that was in Italy last week. And there were some challenges for a couple of the teams. And are those issues going to reappear here at Monaco?
Yeah, and I think, the big elephant in the room is, and I know you want to get to this, is how great Lando Norris was your pick for the Miami Grand Prix for the win. He got a little help with the safety car at Miami, but if he had another lap or two, he most likely would have got Max Verstappen. I mean, that's pretty amazing how on top of it McLaren and Lando is right now.
Yeah, I love the McLaren story right now. Like he's mentioned, Lando Norris getting the win in Miami, which is turning out to be an amazing track and an amazing race. I mean, I'm so glad that now Formula One was able to get to Imola for that Formula One race, because it was canceled last year due to flooding, which is ironic because, just switch to IndyCar just a little bit. We're seeing a ton of flooding at the Indy 500 track. Which is kind of crazy, but the McLarens were right there in pace in Italy, and I have a feeling. I mean, I do want to jump right into this. I have a feeling the McLarens are going to be really, really tough at Monaco this year.
Yeah, and we were talking about it offline yesterday, and I think we both feel that McLaren's going to be really tough. I sort of feel like Piastri's been the guy that's been behind all season long. So I feel like Piastri might just shine in this instance because, if you get the car on the pole, it's really tough to pass at Monaco. And, it's really all about qualifying. But Piastri's doing great. Lando's obviously doing well. We also, when we were talking yesterday, I also felt like Ferrari, and this could be a time for Leclerc to shine. I mean, it's his hometown. He's been built up so much and failed, but the Ferrari has really good slow speed grip. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I mean, you brought up a couple of points there that are actually very important to talk about. One is Piastri has been outshined as of late by Lando Norris, but Piastri's pace is really, really good. And you said it, qualifying is vital here at Monaco. It's that single lap qualifying format. That one hot lap, if you can start at the front of the race, you can kind of control this race. And Monaco traditionally is a one-stop race. Right. It's going to be vital to get that pole position. McLaren, oddly enough, McLaren is the winningest constructor in Monaco. So for McLaren to be doing so well at this time is kind of a nice storied background to that. And you also mentioned the curse of Leclerc at his home Grand Prix. He's never even stood on the podium in any way, shape, or form in any form of racing at Monaco. Of course, he had a couple abysmal races where he qualified incredibly well, but then was not able to make the start because he crashed the car and some other things. It's can Leclerc break the Monaco curse for Ferrari and himself?
Yeah, and I've got, and this is a spoiler alert right now. If you haven't watched practice yet and you don't want to know what happened, this is probably a good time to turn off the recording, but and watch it later, of course. But in practice 2, Leclerc P1. So just as you mentioned it, I hadn't even seen practice 2 yet, and just as you said it, Leclerc is at the top of the sheets with a 1:11.2.
And these times in practice are already faster than their qualifying time last year, which is pretty incredible. Right. Since we're on talking about Ferrari, Carlos Sainz, he's an incredibly fast driver, but as we've seen in the past, he's not exactly that single lap qualifying magician that you have in some of the other drivers. He's a much more consistent, incredibly fast driver, but I think it's going to be a challenge for Sainz to get to that front row, even if they have the car for that. I think I think Leclerc's the basket that all those eggs kind of have to go into for Ferrari. Either one of the McLarens can do really, really well here because they're both aggressive drivers. And this is a track that both rewards and destroys aggression. You can really get into trouble at Monaco.
A really interesting top three. We've got Hamilton in second. So all the issues that the Mercedes has been having all year obviously has something to do with their high speed setup, because on the straightaways they're getting destroyed at the other tracks where there's a long straightaway. But Monaco really doesn't have a straightaway at all. So interesting that Hamilton and the Mercedes obviously has some mechanical grip, which they're taking advantage of this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Lewis Hamilton because he has shown speed here at Monaco. And I was going to say, we got to watch out for some of the wily veterans, and Lewis Hamilton is one of them. He knows this track better than most drivers in the paddock. So he's always been really quick here. He's got he's shown his merits here at Monaco. Another wily veteran you got to watch out for, and the car's not exactly suited to it, but you can never count Fernando Alonso out as another wily veteran. You can see those guys using their panache and their style to kind of eke out an extra 2/10 here and there, where other drivers may not be able to do that. And then you also, look, how can you not bring Nico Hulkenberg into the conversation? He's been a qualifying genius for the boys at Haas.
Well, and before you move on to Haas, though, Alonso was third in practice 2 this morning. That car really hasn't been too great this year. But like you said, a lot of times Monaco, it's 90% driver, 10% car, or maybe, let's say within reason, maybe it's 60% driver, 40% car, because obviously you need a decent car. But how great is that Alonso's in third? So great practice position. And Verstappen in fourth and Norris in fifth. So there you go. Look at all the different manufacturers you have in the top 5.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think, you're bringing up Verstappen. I think Red Bull might see issues with their tires again in Monaco. Those high pressure, low speed turns are going to heat up those tires. And they're running the same compound that they ran in Mola just last week, the C3, 4, and 5 compounds. And the Red Bulls really, really struggled with that C3 compound, which is going to be prevalent in the race on Sunday if it's a sunny race. If it rains, it's a different ball of wax. Yeah. But it's basically going to be a medium tire to hard tire kind of race. I see maybe a couple drivers in the back starting on reds. But the reds are not going to last long at Monaco if the temperatures stay warm like they've kind of been. And it's going to be really, really interesting. I don't think Perez is the man for Red Bull. He hasn't shown the qualifying pace that Max Verstappen has shown in the Red Bull. I think, again, I'm jumping back to the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc over Carlos Sainz in qualifying. McLaren's, it can go either way. Either one of those drivers can pimp a pole, which would just be fantastic, especially as when we transition to the IndyCar story a little bit later in the program.
Yeah, well, what I love about McLaren this weekend is they're running the old school livery with the Senna colors, with the yellow and the bit of green in the back. So it's so cool to see that color. And this is basically their Indy 500 for F1. Yes. This is their biggest event of the year, and it's cool to see that the teams come and do special paint jobs and stuff like that. It looks like as of now, the weather forecast is 70 degrees and partly cloudy for Sunday. So the weather's looking pretty good. But who's going to guess with that? Who's going to be on the pole? It could literally, for once in probably the last 7 years, you could pick any one of 5 guys that could be on the pole. And with Hamilton, in P2 in practice, there's another guy that you never could pick, any other race, at least so far this year. Hamilton's been nowhere. All of a sudden, he's right there at Monaco.
Right, and anything can happen in Monaco. And what about a dark horse? I mean, Tsunoda has shown reasonably good pace in the RB2 car, and he's an aggressive driver that seems to be kind of finding his way around Monaco. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the surprise drivers we see in qualifying is actually Yuki Tsunoda in the RB2 car.
Yeah, and we were both hoping that the Haas team was going to fare a little better because they've been pretty strong, but obviously they've been strong because of the Ferrari motor, and that car's got a little work to do. They've got some work to do in the slow speed stuff. But, like you mentioned, Hulkenberg is a superstar in qualifying. Maybe, it doesn't look like the car's cooperating, but, maybe he could be 7th, 8th, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he even got up a little bit further forward because, the slightest of mistakes in qualifying really can set your lap backwards. So it's going to be super interesting. It's hard for me to pick a P1 because, to your point a moment ago, there are 5, 6, maybe even 7 drivers that could take that pole position. That's kind of crazy to think about. It's been the Max Verstappen show forever, it seems like. And that all seems to be changing right now.
Yeah, in front of our very eyes. The Red Bull's tearing up rear tires, and it's going to be an issue at Monaco. It is hard to pass at Monaco, but with some interesting strategy, someone further back could pull a big surprise. But so with that said, I think I went first last time. It's your time to go first. It's time for your pick for the Monaco Grand Prix.
For the race win at Monaco. God, there's so many drivers that I want to choose, but I think, I'm going to have to, I would love to see Charles Leclerc break the curse and take his maiden victory, his maiden podium at Monaco this year. I would love to see that, but I'm going to have to go with the boy. I'm going to have to go with Lando Norris. Norris. I think he's going to just do it again.
Yeah, Lando's been hot as hell, and so that's a great pick. I am going to go with Leclerc. I think this is the weekend he gets it done. He's been right up there at the front in both practice sessions. He's got the car under him. The Ferrari's stable and fast in slow speed corners, and that's what Monaco's all about. So I'm going with Leclerc for his maiden win at Monaco.
Wow, I love that pick. I think it's a great pick. But who do you think? What do you think the podium might look like? If we were to go a little bit deeper, do you think Lewis Hamilton can find that pace and get that Mercedes to the front of the pack? Or is the customer Mercedes of both McLarens going to outpace them dramatically? That's another story I really, really love. The fact that it's a customer Mercedes that is showing the pace right now in the last few races. Do you think that Lewis Hamilton or Fernando Alonso can squeak onto the podium?
I do. I am leaning a little more towards Hamilton right now, even though the car's been crap the whole year. I am, just because of his experience, and he's smooth. He's a great driver. He's smooth. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And I like Hamilton to be on the podium for sure. What about you? You got any dark horses? Obviously Max is going to be right there. Carlos is going to be close, but any dark horses for the podium for you?
I gotta say, I'm thinking Yuki Tsunoda is gonna pull out a squeaker this weekend. I'm really liking Yuki Tsunoda's. The car's not looking great. He's completely out driving Danny Ricciardo at the moment. He has been for almost the entire season. He's kind of hungry. And I think he's gonna throw it out there. It's gonna be a Cale Yarborough special. He's either gonna crash or win.
Right. Yeah, and how that could happen is he could start with the hardest tire, and then stay out there the longest possible, take over the lead when the other guys come in to get rid of their medium tires. And then if you get lucky and you get just like Lando did at Miami, if you get a yellow flag somewhere towards the second half of the race, the leader's able to jump in the pits, get in and out before anyone else can catch him. So that's exactly how they would do it. So yeah, I like that. And maybe it's someone, for me, I think Stroll this could be the day where he emerges. That if I was Stroll, I would put the hard tires on and go as long as possible and try and do exactly that.
I agree with you. Because we haven't talked about this at all. And this is a track where a virtual safety car, I actually hate the virtual safety car. Either go safety car or go full course yellow, which is effectively a safety car. This is a track we're most likely going to see a safety car environment. And to your point, that long run could really pay dividends for one of those back markers, midfield markers that could push to the front of the pack. So, yeah, I like what you're saying.
And you know what? If I was Christian Horner at Red Bull, I would probably put hards on Perez, since he's not going to have the out-and-out lap speed of Max. I would put hards on Perez and just to cut that off and go with two strategies and try and get Perez to run long. And then if there's a safety car, you got a guy right there.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're talking about Red Bull having to take these kind of what I would consider defensive tactics. But I love it. I love that.
Yeah, it's so nice.
So, all right. So you have Charles Leclerc. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yep. I've got Leclerc. You've got who did you? Oh, you picked Lando.
Lando Norris.
Yep. So there's our picks. We're going to watch the race Sunday morning very early before the Indy 500. And with that, Chris, why don't we talk a little Indy 500?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to not jump right into the Penske dominance in qualifying. 1, 2, 3. Right. Two former Indy 500 winners, Scott McLaughlin, who definitely has the muster to win that race. I mean, that's a Penske lockout on the front row that is a show of dominant speed. And quite frankly, I think the Penskes in the Indy 500, they're going to basically take turns. They're obviously fast in clean air. Their setup may not be good in dirty air. So I have a feeling we're going to see the Penske's, one Penske car always at the front of the field, kind of trying to set the pace.
Yeah, like a rabbit. That's a good, that makes a lot of sense. Interesting that it's Penske owns the racetrack, owns the IndyCar series, and is 1, 2, 3 at Indy. I mean, Roger Penske's a really up and up guy. So I think it's just a matter of them being that good. But it does raise a few eyebrows, doesn't it?
It does, but it's Penske. I mean, they've been dominant in the field of motorsports in almost every category that they've ever participated in. So to see the Penske's back at the front of the pack, it's almost like it's about time kind of situation. Because Chip Ganassi Racing has been incredibly strong the last couple of years. I mean, Alex Palou is, two-time champion, race winner this season, won the Dash for Cash at Thermal. It's also interesting how the McLarens are super fast here in Indy as well, qualifying P4 and 5, and with rookie Kyle Larson.
Oh, my God. I was going to bring that up. I mean, how incredible is that? I mean, the guy has a dirt track background, so he's used to sliding the car, which is the last thing you want to do is drive an Indy car with the tail end coming around. I mean, maybe in NASCAR it works. So I am absolutely incredibly blown away by the job that Kyle Larson is doing. I mean, it's almost as good as when Nigel Mansell came over here and was running in the top 3 all day long. I would say it's easier. It would have been easier for Nigel because Indy cars and F1 cars are a little closer. I mean, the NASCAR is nothing like an Indy car. What an amazing job he's doing.
What a drive! What a drive! And it just goes to, again, Zach Brown's at the head of at the top of his game with McLaren F1, McLaren IndyCar. I mean, Alexander Rossi, he qualified P5, so it's not a fluke that the McLarens are fast. And a little bit further back, Pato O'Ward, I think he qualified ninth. Is showing good pace, and actually, it was interesting. I was watching some of the lapping days, and he looked really good in traffic. Yep. Did Award. So I think they may have set the cars up slightly differently as far as setup. So I think Pato Award's going to will do really, really well during the race, working his way forward. And there's a couple of other drivers that's like, okay, they're kind of mired in the middle of the pack as far as qualifying is concerned, but you've got to look at Alex Palou in the Chip Ganassi car. You got to look at Scott Dixon again in the Chip Ganassi car. You know, those Ganassi cars are going to be good in the race. Andretti has got to show up to a race sooner or later. I mean, I really feel like Andretti has been underperforming to the level that they should be at. But I would venture a guess that Colton Herta and Alex Palou, they're going to be in lockstep almost the entire race.
Yeah, and just you mentioned Pato O'Ward. I'm just checking the qualifyings right now. He's Pato O'Ward's 8th. And he's been at the top of his game and at the top of the IndyCar field for a few years now. So that's a great potential pick for the race because he's going to be quick. And you mentioned Colton Herta and Alex Palou. What I would add to that is 10th place is Takuma Sato. Takuma Sato, for some reason, always gets his car to the front at Indy. And it's right. And he just he has a knack for the race and the track. He doesn't damage his equipment, and he gets the car to the front every year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's impossible to talk about the Indy 500 if Takuma Sato's in the race and not bring up Takuma Sato. To your point, he preserves his cars. He always finds his way at the front of the pack. So he's on my short list of picks. Right here on my sheet right now is Takuma Sato with the Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing Team, and he's outshining Graham Rahal, who just struggled to get in the show at all. I think he qualified 33rd.
I know. Yeah,
which is kind of interesting. But speaking of other fast drivers. Speaking of other fast drivers, you cannot discount Santino Ferrucci. He's always fast at the Indy 500.
He sure is. And how cool would that be, AJ Foyt? But are you pulling up a Santino Ferrucci hat right now or no? No, you're not. Oh, I thought you were going to put an AJ hat.
If I had it, I would absolutely have to put that. I mean, it's on the short list of picks. But you can't discount Meyer Shank either. They've got some strong drivers in their lineup. Felix Rosenquist, who's shown speed. Tom Blomqvist, who's also shown speed. They brought back veteran Helio Castro Neves for the Indy 500. Do not be surprised if he just kind of hovers around for a while and all of a sudden with 50 laps to go, he's in the top 8.
Yeah, and talking about old school drivers, you got Ed Carpenter there as well, and so it's pretty interesting that you've got some wily veterans. We didn't talk about Scott Dixon at all. He's about mid-pack, but if he's got anything on Sunday, he's going to get up to the front as well. So really, it's an intriguing race, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. It's hard not to pick the Penske's based on pure speed, but you just mentioned Scott Dixon and the Ganassi cars. I feel like Ganassi's really set up their cars for race pace, for that, being in the draft, being in the pack. It's a much different car than one that's at the front of the race. It doesn't mean it can't get to the front of the race. As a matter of fact, I think all of a sudden Scott Dixon, who's going to go one pit stop less than everybody, is going to be at the front of the race. The guy has the ability to save tires. The guy has the ability to be light on fuel, and he has the knack of not wrecking his equipment. So Scott Dixon, Chip Ganassi Racing, again, there's so many good picks at this year's Indy 500. It's one of the reasons why IndyCar racing is so bloody exciting.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an exciting race because we were all excited that there was potentially 5 winners at Monaco Grand Prix. Well, there's probably 20 or 15 potential winners at least at Indy. So it makes it really, really exciting. And you ready? Oh, you know what? One thing I wanted to bring up is Catherine Legg, who qualified 31st on the last row. I just happened to see our recording from the Long Beach Grand Prix. You can go to YouTube, and it's at The Speed Traveler on YouTube. It's our channel. And look for the recording from the Acura Grand Prix at Long Beach on the first night. And I think it says Friday night or first night. And Catherine Legg was one of our guests. And I really didn't know her story. And how cool was she? Catherine Legg is really interesting person. So please go check that out. It really, really one of my favorite interviews we've done here on the Speed Traveler.
Yeah, you know what? She's an amazing person. She was a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking with her and hearing, like you said, hearing more about her story and her background. And, you know, it's been a battle to get back into the IndyCar. And what's interesting is you mentioned she was one of the last chance qualifiers, but her speed was actually really, really good. It's unfortunate that it didn't come together for her in the first rounds of qualifying, and she kind of got mired back into last chance qualifying. But her speed was actually really, really good, and she's a wily veteran. I mean, she's not a newcomer to the high speed ovals like Indy and all the other road courses as well. So she is going to be an exciting driver to watch during the race. I would not be surprised to see her moving forward. And at some point, theoretically, because she's going to be sitting at the back, working her way forward and saving fuel, I have a feeling we might see her at the front of the race.
Yep. Exactly. If she saves fuel and can do one less pit stop or can do a later pit stop, that's the way you could win the race. But all right, well, it's time for our picks. Since you went first for Formula One, I'm going to go first for IndyCar. I think the natural pick for most people would be Dixon, but I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go with Newgarden just because he has been so quick on the ovals and he's got a good car under him. And I feel like he's driving well. So I'm going Joseph Newgarden.
You know, Joseph Newgarden is a fantastic pick. I don't know how you don't pick Dixon. I don't know how I don't pick Dixon. And the only reason I may not pick Dixon here is because I know we're in a little bit of a pool, and I know a lot of people are going to pick Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon, podium, 100%. It's almost a foregone conclusion. You know what? I'm going out on a limb here. McLaren's going to do the double. And Alexander Rossi is going to take home the victory, his second victory at the Indy 500 for McLaren. McLaren's doing the double. Lando Norris is winning the Formula One race in Monaco. Alexander Rossi is winning the Indy 500.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great pick. And if you are online, you're watching the races live, go to the Speed Traveler on Instagram. We're going to be posting all morning long, starting at I'm going to watch the race live from Monaco, which is about 5 a.m. Pacific time. So make sure to go on Instagram on Sunday morning, and we can all have some laughs along the way.
What a great day. Here's the problem we're going to run into, though. There's no way. So here's the side bet on the Indy 500. In my opinion, there's no way the race runs on Sunday. It's going to be way too wet. I saw some images of the track from this morning, and the rainwater was up to the top of the pit wall. So the track is absolutely soaked. I don't think there's any chance in heck that the race gets run on Sunday. I honestly think the Indy 500 is going to probably run on Tuesday.
Wow, that'll be a first. They've run it on Monday before. I don't think they've ever run it on Tuesday. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. But what a fun weekend. We need to talk about the Coca-Cola 600, but you know what? There's plenty of NASCAR podcasts for that. And we're glad that you joined us. And any final thoughts, Chris?
It's going to be a great day of racing. Break out your best Belgian waffles. Break out your best wit beer, and sit back and relax, because I know that's what I'm going to be doing. It's going to be Belgian waffles and wit beer all day long.
Yeah, and make sure you follow along with us on Instagram at the Speed Traveler on Sunday morning. We'll be posting a lot, and we will come back and hit you up after both the Monaco Grand Prix and the Indy 500 are completed, and do a little review of what we saw. But with that, Chris, I'm so glad everyone joined us. I'm Charlie Frank. That's Chris Evertson. We will be back on the Speed Traveler F1 Deep Dive very soon. Thanks for joining us.